Morning, Pyro. Yeah, I think the idea of copying yourself into a computer. I think we're talking at cross purposes here, possibly, or the version that you've got is slightly different to the version that I've got. When I'm talking about, yeah, I'm not really talking about uploading consciousness or doing any of those kind of things. Although I did mention that in one of the videos, so I can understand why that's confusing. I'm really talking about. Well, actually, I think I'm talking about something that you'll have sympathy with, because I'm conceiving of what it means to be alive and what it means to die in a slightly different way, which is resonant with something you were talking about in terms of, I can't remember if you used the word consciousness or not, but something about self being distributed and feeling yourself as distributed, which is something I completely associate with. I'm not sure if I necessarily feel myself as distributed, but I fully accept the fact that this thing we call a self is a distributed set of, if you can call it modules if you like, or processing modalities or perceptual engagements, those kind of things, with consciousness being either the illusory or the real, whichever you want, process of cohering those into a meaningful form for various biological survival reasons. But so when I'm talking about capturing that information and saving it post-mortem, I'm not necessarily talking about consciousness. In fact, I would say that's probably the least important. Yeah, but I think it would be more interesting to try to capture some of the other stuff, which, as I say, we already do in a way anyway. You know, we make videos and we write diaries and we write books and we take photographs, and okay, right now they're very passive kinds of memorials, but that's how they function. But there's no reason why they couldn't be slightly more active. And I think as those kinds of traces of ourselves, which are almost bodily extensions in some ways, as those traces of ourselves become more active in a distributed form, then this kind of romantic adherence we have to an embodied consciousness will become less significant. You know, I can easily imagine a situation in which I kind of proliferate information about myself and it becomes active. You know, on this site, on Twitter, Facebook, different kinds of forms, and presumably forms which will evolve in the next 15 or 20 years. I can imagine myself being distributed across these forms, and those things having some kind of active component, which, as I said in a previous video, they are starting to have a little bit now. The processes that are at work in those media are starting to activate the content, such that it gets to a point where it's everything I need to say is there, really. Everything I need to do is there. Of course, there is this still romantic attachment to consciousness. You know, because it wouldn't be that my consciousness is copied. I wouldn't feel myself to be in a computer, and we'd have to find a way to lose that attachment. But I think that would be relatively easy. And if what you're saying about you know, feeling yourself to be distributed is anything to go by, I think that is a form of self-awareness which is relatively easy to gain. I certainly have no issue with that. I've no particular desire to you know, to kind of remain romantically or egotistically attached to a consciousness or to the pleasures of the flesh even necessarily. I think distributing myself across a bunch of silicon instruments at some point in the future will be absolutely fine. I mean, there's some interesting things there about this copying thing. I don't know if you know a film called Prestige. That addresses some of the issues that you're talking about there, about making copies, and then if you copy consciousness, do you have to destroy the original body? It's a great film about Victorian magicians, Prestige. And David Bowie's in it. He plays Nikolai Tesla. Fantastic. Anyway, thanks for that.